to the Amplifying Leadership podcast. Our topic is leadership, and our guests bring their knowledge, skills, challenges, and even some of their wins to help us all be better leaders. My name is Tara Lehman, and I'm a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. For our leadership clients, I aim to provide effective leadership information through our podcast, coaching, and so much more. You can see all about our leadership offerings and even information on our new Amplifying Leadership community at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Kevin McGowan, speaker, webinar host, and leader who has spent his career in both the high-tech and nonprofit sectors. Currently a program manager and also a director of a charity too. Kevin, that's a lot of great information. Thank you for being on our show today.
Thanks, Sarah. Really happy to be here with you.
So you had mentioned to me earlier that you use empathy to help you get through some of those tough projects on your leadership journey. So why don't we start maybe a little bit about your leadership journey and how you use that, how it's helped to get to where you are today?
The journey is funny when I was kind of preparing some thoughts for how this might go today. So how far back should I go?
I've had that come up before.
Like, do I go back to my paper route? Like when I was 12. But I think if I really want to be serious, I think leadership, and I'll put my quotes on. Leadership really started probably when I was a teenager. I've just always had this kind of project management brain. I guess I'm just very organized, and that's kind of has always been my skill set. So back when I was like a little punk rock, heavy metal teenager, I was organizing dances and concerts and things like that in our little community of Sarnia, Ontario, where I grew up. So things like that kind of put me in a position where I was leading a group of people to accomplish a goal. Right, it was very informal. We didn't know what we were doing,
whatever. Kids.
but we were 16, but we learned it as we went.
Yeah.
Right, and we had a safe space to explore how do we do a dance, and how do we sell tickets, and how do we get a PA system, and that kind of stuff. Right, so very rudimentary kind of stuff, but it kind of started me and I think others on a path of how to coach, how to lead, how to collaborate, and kind of run that when other people have certain skill sets, and recognizing certain skill sets, and being able to help amplify those too. So really for 30-ish years, more than that, I guess, I've been I've been a manager, I've been a team leader, I've been a project manager, I've done all sorts of titles and roles. But leadership is just for me has evolved a lot from when I think when you're younger, you're less experienced, and certainly I fell victim to this. You think I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I have to tell everybody what to do.
Yeah.
And
manager.
That's a horrible mistake.
Yes.
Right? You can't lead that way, and it can certainly go south very quickly. So what I learned is that in order to lead, whether you're in that formal leadership position or not, to have that empathetic ear and have that attitude where I'm not the boss, I'm not trying to order people around. I'm trying to get the best for whatever the circumstance we're in, whatever project we're working on, and how to try and organize people and their skills. My skills, the organization part, I know that. I'm confident with that, but their skills are going to be different. So how to orchestrate all these people so we can all work together.
I love it. And I love that you use the word we, because a leader is part of the team. As you said, they're not doing the management and dictating. They are part of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole, like I always, when I'm talking about leadership, it's about empathy. And I mean, there's lots of great articles and books about empathy and leadership, but I think it kind of comes naturally to me, I guess, in a way. I'm just kind of a naturally just empathetic person. But I've really worked on that because it is and we are working towards something together, and what's more important than the people you're working with.
Exactly.
And I think that can be easily forgotten when you're trying to hit a certain milestone or certain numbers. You've got to sell this number of widgets by Friday, or else or the stakeholders are going to be upset, or the shareholders are going to be upset. And that may be true to some extent, but what's more important is the people you're working with. And if they're struggling for something at work or outside of work, as a leader, you have to recognize that and be able to support them through whatever that situation is. That's part of your job.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. Absolutely. So, when you think about your own leadership journey, and you have lots of wonderful experiences behind you in your work, I'm sure,
Hmm.
what was maybe the biggest obstacle that you faced in your own journey to leadership?
I think my own biggest obstacle, I guess, would really be my own confidence.
Okay,
I
yeah.
mean, I have leadership skills, I guess, right? But I haven't always been confident in them, and my ego has been muted, I think over the years.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about me having the thinking that I can do this, that I can go into a team and actually, affect some kind of change.
Hmm.
Where I think my natural tendency is to be a little more introverted, is kind of, wallflower kind of person.
Hmm.
Really being able to turn that on and work with a team to achieve whatever it is we're trying to achieve, and try and lead that. It didn't come naturally to me. It's something I
Hmm.
really had to work at, and that's the beautiful thing about having, everyone's had good bosses and not so good bosses over the years,
Yes.
or leaders. But I've had some really, really kind, helpful folks who saw that I really wanted to, get in there, right,
Yeah.
and
Move
do
forward
something a
or
bit
grow.
different. And they
Yeah.
said, and they supported me, and they said, okay, you are going to run this project, and you are going to, influence this because
Hmm.
you know a lot about that, so you go do this. So
Hmm.
people were kind enough to just give me those opportunities, and that gave me confidence, and then I could go off and do other things. But I think earlier in
Yeah.
my career, it was really hard for me to kind of stand up. I felt like when I was working with a high tech company, a high tech
Hmm.
startup, and I've worked with several over the years, but I'd be like, well, I'm not an engineer.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can I possibly be a leader here? Like, I don't know what we're doing. Right.
It's like, what is
I, uh, I don't
that?
know. I don't know how to code this. I don't know how to design
Yeah.
that. But over the years, what I've learned is it's great to have that engineering skill set, super important, but there are other skills that the team needs to
Hmm.
be able to be successful. So I bring other elements. I'm never going to be a software designer. That's not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know enough. I can speak enough of the language that I can, help that team maybe do things better or differently,
Hmm.
or just have or just open communication, which is generally a big part of leadership as well. If you're not communicating well, then everything falls
Hmm.
apart. So guiding the team in that kind of way.
And I think you're right. I was in the trucking industry. I'll
Oh
say
yeah.
grew up in a company. I was there for 23 years.
Okay.
And, I did get to know a lot of the parts, but that doesn't mean I'd be able to put them all together on a truck. So, even that confidence of, in your tech industry and maybe in some of the parts that we were selling for myself, you're
Yeah.
always going to have a piece of it that you have to rely on your team for, and that you won't have full confidence in yourself to know. And that's also a part of the growing leadership journey, right? We
Yeah.
aim to grow. So yeah, so I agree. I think every leader has a little piece of them that they're not 100% confident in, and again, that's what that team is for, right?
Exactly. The whole point is you're not doing it by yourself,
Yes, exactly.
because you have to rely on everybody for what they bring to the table, and
Hmm.
what their skills are.
Exactly, the skill set, absolutely. So you alluded to this already, but communication is my favorite topic around leadership, because if you're not a
Right.
good communicator, you're not a great leader, right?
Yeah.
So you have been, in a couple of different situations where you told me there were some tough decisions or projects.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering what you think communication should look like as a leader, especially maybe when someone is going through, maybe it's a tough decision or change or a tough project that they're working on. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, I guess what I've learned is there's different kinds of tough. There's technical challenges. There's time challenges,
Hmm.
milestone challenges, scheduling
Hmm.
challenges. There's risks that pop up out of nowhere that you thought you would anticipate but you didn't. So there's things like that. But there's also more emotional challenges that
Yeah.
can show up in the workplace, right? And that's either coming from home
Hmm.
or something that bubbles up because of the work you're doing. I was very naive, I think, when I was working with a national not-for-profit recently. We were working on a large program fighting the opioid crisis, right? And I mean,
Hmm.
which is massive uh, health issue, massive crisis for many communities and families around the country. And communication is super critical in that you obviously have to, all the stakeholders have to be informed to the degree
Hmm.
they need to be informed. The budgets have to be, signed, sealed, delivered, approved.
Hmm.
Receipts have to be accumulated. All that, all those
Yeah.
internal processes have to go. So you have to be able to communicate on all these things, which is not easy necessarily, but it's fairly easy once you've done it for a while. If you're a good communicator, you can
Hmm.
have those skills and you know how to talk to people. What was a challenge there for me ended up being literally the work itself, because I came
Okay.
into it as I'm a project manager. I can
Right.
hire people. I can read resumes. I can do interviews. I can build a
Yeah.
team. I can build this plan. It's going to be great, So we were able to do that. But then you get into the work, and it was so out of my league,
Mm.
me
Okay.
personally, and I had to learn a lot about how to communicate with a team of people who are like social workers, and who
A
worked
little
in that
different.
space. Like working in a high tech company, you're selling widgets,
Hmm.
great.
Yeah,
Like
it's totally
they just
different.
keep going out the door, right? And that's fine. But this, we had, teams like every meeting there, somebody would burst into tears because of the
Oh, wow.
situation they were hearing about in a community where there was,
Mm.
a person or several people died from,
Wow.
tainted opioids, right? Like things like that. So
Hmm.
it just became not something I was really prepared for.
Hmm.
I guess that
Yeah, I
was just,
bet.
pure naivete, right? But I think what I learned in that team was a different kind of communication.
Right.
Was sometimes you just have to sit there and just listen to somebody who's upset because they're
Hmm.
dealing, or they've just heard about this awful thing and they need to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the team was very supportive and very helpful in that, but as the leader of that team, really had to make sure that my communication style was very different than anything I'd done before. It wasn't, certainly I'm not going to be directive like, well, just get over it, like,
No.
no, you'll be fine. That's the job. Like,
Yeah.
but so you have to really, really focus on different kind of communication. It's not therapy. I'm certainly not that role, but it was somewhere between, colleague, leader, boss, friend. It really, there was a deep integration in this team where the communication was so different and so unique,
Hmm.
that it took me a while to really understand how to do that, because I was like, well, but I'm the leader. I can't necessarily get involved. But
Hmm.
like, yes, yeah, like look at the job we were doing
Yeah,
at the time. We had
exactly.
to get involved. It was a
Yeah.
requirement. There was an emotional requirement that you be available and be able to communicate that. And when I was struggling with stuff, I had to communicate that to the team,
Yeah.
which is a hard thing to do too. But they needed to understand that, the leader of the team was in it as much as they were. And
Hmm.
I needed the support too, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh my God,
exactly.
guys, we just dealt with this awful situation. We need to talk about it. Like, yeah, so do I. Like, I'm not made of stone either, right? So
Hmm.
it became a very, very good learning experience in a lot of ways in terms of how to build a team of very
Hmm.
empathetic people, and how to communicate well with everyone in dealing with what was just frankly really difficult, file, a
Yeah.
difficult project.
And very different from tech. So I'm sure you had
Yeah,
to try to, like, it would have taken some time to really understand the different skills and communication needed for a situation like such as the opioids, right? That's a very
yeah,
different type of leadership.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And I always found that if you're not able to really communicate well, like you don't have to share everything with everybody. You have to pick your
Exactly. Yeah.
times and your
Hmm.
audience, and know how to work with each individual. But it comes down to honesty, and trust. I think, and that good, that's high tech, that's not for profit, that's
That's
single
everywhere.
family, that's
Yeah.
everything, right? If you come off as somebody who doesn't really care, or you're not 100% into that relationship, people know. And if they
Hmm.
don't trust you, you don't really have a lot of currency with that group.
Hmm.
As a leader, you have to be as open and honest as you can. Obviously, there's maybe going to be situations you can't share
You can't share
everything,
everything. Yeah.
um, but ultimately, the currency is trust in that relationship, and the more you have to spend, right? To
Hmm.
belabor the metaphor, but if you screw up, or if you make a mistake, or you say the wrong thing, or you show like, you get upset or whatever, like
Yeah, angry.
the
Yeah.
people, if they trust you, it means they know you're human. They were more likely to forgive, you
Hmm.
know,
Agree.
uh, that moment where you kind of lose it and then come back.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's
So
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
because whereas if you don't have that trust and you're constantly, either not being honest or you're kind of dancing around issues or whatever it might be, that they're just going to start working around you rather than with you, right? So I've
Exactly.
seen that a lot too.
So, there's a lot of emotions as we're talking about when it comes to leaders. And I know you've worked both nonprofit and high tech.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's massive differences. Is there anything that you want to also help us understand about the big differences when it comes to leadership besides maybe emotion? Because we have talked about that with the empathy and being able to feel and trust. Is there anything else that you would see as huge differences between the two when it comes to leadership that maybe some of our leaders listening today might want to take that tidbit back with them if they're switching industries?
That's a good question. I have a running joke. It's not particularly funny. Okay. But
Okay.
I have this metaphor where, like a high tech startup and a not for profit, like a small not for profit or small organization, they're really kind of the same. The only
Hmm.
difference is that in the high tech startup, maybe one day you're going to have money, right? So that's the only real difference
That's
between
the difference. Yeah.
them. Most not for profits are kind of
Not
flying
for
by
profit.
the seat of their pants, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're kind of switching industries, or if you're looking to switch industries, um, yeah, in terms of being a leader, it's I don't think the rules really changed that much. It comes down to the trust factor. It comes down
Hmm.
to honesty. It comes down to having the ability to, lead towards a goal. And like, I'm a
Hmm.
project manager, right? So I have like all those, integration management is something that comes up. If you're going to work on a thing, it has to align with the goals of the organization.
Hmm.
So, and that's the same across industries, right? If you're
Yeah.
a farmer, you're not necessarily
Yeah.
going to take on, software development because that's not what you do, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily fitting your
Exactly.
organization. Um, so what I see in a lot of small organizations and even a lot of startups, well, it goes for not-for-profits too. There's a lot of passionate people there.
Hmm.
And so that passion is also very similar across these types of organizations, right? Everybody's like gung ho about getting the thing done. Oh yeah, we're gonna take over the world, or we're gonna save the world, or whatever it might be. Um, but that makes it hard to focus sometimes.
Hmm.
So a good leader really understands what that nugget is, what that really
Right.
that
Okay.
goal and that purpose is, and is able to guide the team to that. Because there's going to be all these great random ideas that pop up, but they're not necessarily going to fit
Hmm.
with what that core concept really is. It might be a great idea, and
Hmm.
maybe we get to it in 5 years, but it's not something we need to do right now. So yeah, great leadership, I think, in either scenario, is very hyper aware of the goals and
Hmm.
leads the team and is able to kind of separate wheat and chaff of all the concepts and just kind of
Yeah.
focus on what that is to accomplish it, and to communicate that in a wonderful and supportive way. That's a great idea. We're not going to do it. And we'll be able to communicate that in such a way that people feel like
Yeah.
they're heard and
Yeah.
that they feel part of the
Absolutely.
team. And it's not about them. It's just that,
Hmm.
this idea isn't quite fitting, for what we want to do right now. So yeah, being able to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah, and I'm an advocate for brainstorming because you might get these
Mhm.
far right ideas that make no sense today, but maybe
Yeah.
they do 5 years from now, or maybe there's a piece of them that you can
Hmm.
utilize. And so I'm a huge advocate for taking those ideas, really appreciating them, as you mentioned, right? Listening to
Yeah.
them, letting them feel heard, welcome to share. And then if it doesn't fit, nicely telling them it doesn't fit and why. I mean, I'm a huge
Yeah.
advocate for that. So
Oh,
awesome.
absolutely.
What would you say would be your biggest tip? Maybe let's do it for new leaders. So let's say I'm brand new to
Okay.
leadership. What would you say is the biggest tip that you would share with me?
Uh, you asked me for one, I have two, so I'll share two.
Okay, you can share too. Go ahead.
There's always a couple that come to mind, but one is to be flexible. and not so, stuck in the idea, like you were just saying, like the brainstorming, you have a team for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not doing this on your own. So be flexible and listen to these alternate viewpoints. Um, the other big thing I think is ask for help
I love it. I
when you
love
need
it.
it, because what I've found when I've been in a few organizations, I'm a team member, team contributor, and then boom, you're up to like a management position or that formal leadership position. You start to live in a bit of a bubble because people don't necessarily, the relationships change, and you're not really sure how to you know handle certain things, and
Yeah.
maybe you're not getting a lot of formalized training on how to do performance reviews or
Yep.
something like that, right? If you're in that kind of a role. um so I think ask for help, and it's not just within your organization. Yeah, there's going to be courses and all these great YouTube videos about how to do certain things, but I think ask people who are in similar roles to you, ping folks on LinkedIn or just
Yes.
friends or people in your organization, and just bounce ideas, because you're not going to know everything, and you're going to try stuff that fails, and you're not going to know why, because your team might not want to give you the feedback.
Yes, especially if you're new or they were your
Yeah, exactly.
coworkers.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's hard, and the same goes when you're kind of transplanted into an organization. You're a new employee, but you're in that higher level on the org chart, and you don't know anything really about how things
Exactly.
function.
Yeah.
So ask, and don't assume that it's a bad thing. Like it's a great thing. It means people know that you care enough to try and figure it out. And
And
that's
to
really
do it
important.
right the first time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I love that. That is, I tell my clients, even if you don't know, don't sit there and hide in your bubble, like you say, right? It's
yeah.
about finding out, ask somebody. And if it's about a policy or procedure, don't just make assumptions either, like ask. Especially if you're new to the company and you don't know what they are, like just ask for help, because a true leadership team will help their new leaders.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the conversation today, Kevin. And if people wanted to learn maybe a little bit more about you or have some questions, is there any way that they could get in touch with you?
Absolutely. They can go to my website. It's kevinscottmcgowan.com. Or you can well, all my contact information is through there. So if you'd like to get in touch,
Perfect.
please do.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much for a very insightful conversation today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you to our listeners. I hope you gained some great insight from today's podcast with Kevin. If you would like more information on leadership coaching, consulting, or workshops, or just want to be a guest on my podcast, please reach out to me at tara@twinlifecoaching.ca. To find more about all of our leadership services, including our community, please visit amplifyingleadership.ca, a Twin Life Coaching and Business Services division. Until next time, please be safe and be an amazing leader or leader to be.